Hey everyone, my name is Jonah Morrow from Veritas Essays, and in this webinar, we're going to be discussing college essay topics to avoid. To give you a preview as to what we're going to be discussing today, we're first going to cover the basics of the college essay, what it is, when it's due, and why it matters in the grand scheme of your college applications. Next, we're going to transition to discuss 4 types of college essays that should be avoided by the majority of students. And finally, I'll provide some tips and tricks on the types of essays that can bring out the most insight for high school students. First, an introduction. My name is Jonah Morrow, and I grew up in Chicago and am a recent graduate of Harvard. And I founded Veritas Essays with my partner Michael while I was an undergrad at Harvard. So let's begin. In its simplest form, the main type of college essay that people are referring to is the personal statement, which provides a chance for an admissions reader to develop a picture of you beyond your academic profile. The Common App essay is the most popular personal statement option, as it allows students to submit one universal application to nearly all US undergraduate programs. Supplemental essays vary by school and are often shorter, offering a chance to elaborate upon your interests in a certain school or your academic or extracurricular achievements. The personal statement essay is, in my opinion, the most crucial part of one's application. Academic achievements serve to show that a student will be able to handle the school's rigor, and extracurriculars can start to paint a picture of a student's interest and drive. However, the essay gives an admissions officer a sense of what type of student you will be once you arrive to campus by giving insight to your personality, background, aspirations, and other challenges. More importantly, content found in your personal statement essay could sway an admissions officer to fight for your spot on campus when they enter the larger decision committee. Some essays do this by sharing a personal story of failure and redemption, while others impress with their wit and creativity. At Veritas Essays, we like to view the overall application as a funnel. Academic achievements are the first barrier and indicate an aptitude to succeed in the classroom. Extracurricular activities can indicate one's leadership ability or signal academic or personal passions, giving a look as to what type of presence a student will bring once they arrive to campus. Finally, the qualitative elements, like letters of recommendation from a teacher, an interview, and crucially the essay, will serve to flesh out the student as a real, breathing individual and should arm one's admissions reader with a personal story from which to argue for their candidacy and tie the whole application together. On this next slide, the US application timeline is previewed. We recommend that a student attempts to draft their Common App personal statement over the summer months. So when the Common App goes live on August 1st, they can focus on preparing their school-specific supplementary essays and their activity list. Early action and early decision application options fall in November, and regular decision deadlines occur from December into January, coinciding with notification about those early admission. Finally, regular decision for most schools is released in March. Now, if you're watching this video in the early fall or the late fall and are just starting your essays, no worries. Many students work during the summer or have other things going on and aren't ready to write their essays yet. However, it's important to be mindful of all of your school's different deadlines, so we recommend listing them in a spreadsheet or a document to keep easy track of. So we've now arrived at the main topic of this webinar, essay topics you should avoid. Before we dive in, I want to caveat and say that it is possible to write a top-notch essay about almost any topic you can think of. However, for reasoning I'll go on in the next few slides, we recommend that the majority of students avoid essays about music, competition, charity, and essays that are infeasible. And we're going to go through each of these one by one to explain the reasoning and discuss why they might not be the best option for you. So first, let's start with the music essay. So every year, thousands of applicants write about music, thinking that it's an uncommon topic that most others won't pick. And frankly, they're wrong. It's a pretty common hackneyed topic, which makes it all the more difficult to stand out if a student chooses to write about it. And admissions officers who are reading thousands of essays each cycle open essay over essay, that describes the feeling of their bow across the strings. And this type of essay needs to overcome a lot of exasperation factor to come away as an essay that the admissions officer likes and can argue from. And this doesn't mean it's impossible to write a fantastic, revealing essay about music, but there will be a handful of these among every 100 that come through. And overcoming that exasperation factor takes a lot of work. Why not just choose a more interesting topic that hasn't been explored nearly as much? In general, we recommend students to choose a non-musical topic unless there is truly a foundational story that makes music the only possible topic in their minds. Second, the competition essay. Unlike music, there really hasn't ever been a good essay written about a competition. Why do you ask? Well, first, competitions lack much opportunity for insight and can be repetitive because oftentimes a competition or an accolade from a competition will show up in the activity section of the Common App or in a more niche supplemental essay. Moreover, an admissions officer can read about a competition on their own website, and by choosing it as one's Common App topic, it illustrates a fundamental lack of depth that can really turn over an entire application. There's no way to write an essay about competition without showing some amount of self-centeredness, even unintentionally. And these me essays, which are really only talking about the student and their accomplishments, are not a pathway forward. Leave talk of competitions to the activity section or for more niche supplemental prompts. Next is the charity essay. Essays about charity should be avoided for a few reasons. First, writing about a charity is like telling someone you're a good person because you help other people. Generally, good people don't go around telling others how good they are. They just do good things and let their actions speak for themselves. In an application, this can be achieved through the activity section, which can be full of charities without making a student seem self-aggrandizing. But writing an essay about charity comes across badly and tends to speak negatively towards a student's character. There's nothing to really take out of someone who uses a charity as a device to make themselves seem admirable or admissionable to a college. Second, charities make bad topics because however good you did with your charity, there's likely someone applying who did a lot more good, whether through the same type of charity or a different type of charity. And by holding up your charity as the reason you should be admitted to college, is implicitly comparing yourself favorably to others who probably did similar or more than you can even imagine. Said more simply, a charity is not a wholly unique device from which to share insight about yourself, and will innately be compared with all of the other students who write about charity as a topic. Third, charities are bad essay topics because even the insight that can be drawn from them comes across wrong. In general, insight in charity essay is limited to the author meeting someone they helped and having that person tell them about how impactful a charity has been. But that doesn't come across too strongly because it illustrates a lack of perspective into how other people struggle. Almost no high school student is going to be able to solve another person's problem entirely, even with an incredible charity. And to write like that's possible is really showing some ignorance. And the only exception to this rule is an essay about how futile a charity project was. For example, writing about how ultimately ineffective or insignificant your service trip to an impoverished country was can actually illustrate a lot of perspective, and a student might be able to turn that into a compelling affirmation of their intention to do something meaningful in college and beyond. However, for the majority of students, the college topic is not the way to go. Now, onto our fourth topic, the infeasible essay. This is the most vague category of essays to avoid, because generally these topics will sound great at first glance. You might have an ambitious idea for how to approach a certain topic, and when you brainstorm a bit on it, you're pretty much sold. It seems like it could be an incredibly interesting or different essay that'll stand out from almost every other. All right, now take a step back. Ask yourself, if a professional author tried to write the essay that you are proposing to write in 650 words, which is the cap for a Common App, would they be successful? And if you can't answer that question in the affirmative with 100% confidence, then you can almost always assume that you at 17 or 18 in high school won't be able to pull it off. In that case, it's a bad idea to pursue this topic. Now, at this point, you're probably wondering, with all those topics to avoid, is there anything actually good to write about? Well, you're in luck. Typically, the best essays are portrayals of difficult lessons learned through intimate relationships between the author and someone close to them, most often this being a family member, a very close friend, or a mentor. These essays provide the student with an opportunity to illustrate authenticity, care for others, humility in action, and their personal values. But primarily, relationships are great fodder essays for the following three reasons. First, the best way to avoid seeming conceited in an essay is to spend time talking about someone else. And the notion that by talking about others you're failing to talk about yourself is false. In describing others and the actions of others, you can reveal a lot about yourself, the world you inhabit, your passions and aspirations, the things that make you tick, and the qualities in people that you respect or fear or idolize. Thus, relationship essays present an incredible opportunity to talk about yourself while really talking about someone else. Relationship essays also provide a fantastic opportunity to directly talk about yourself without seeming conceited, because you're discussing yourself in the context of a relationship, an entity, or something inherently larger than you. When you describe your thoughts, your feelings, and your characteristics in that context, you won't come across as me, but rather as thoughtful and introspective. And finally, it's really difficult for even the most mature of high school students to show real deep insight. At 17 or 18 years old, most students haven't had enough experience to really be insightful. However, intimate relationships tend to be the one thing in a high schooler's life capable of forcing them to think deeper, to reach for profoundness, and to actually find it and put it on paper. High school students are really clued in to the relationships that matter most to them, and they can often achieve deeper reflections about their relationships, even if they're incapable of thinking very deeply about other things. So, how is this insight tapped into? Well, you want to ask yourself the question, what about this relationship or situation is different from the norm? And what makes it stand out from the relationships of other people's? So, for example, if a student's talking about their relationship with their grandmother, then what about the relationship with their grandmother or an item they were given or an experience they had with that person is different from that of other people? Additionally, relationships are something that everyone has. So the admissions officer is going to be able to tap into their own experience in life to relate and understand the experience that the student's coming from. So to illustrate these topics, we're going to run through um, an exercise where we're going to evaluate a few sample essay topics as inherently weak, 50-50, or as inherently strong. And you can follow along and evaluate them yourselves if you want to cover the right-hand side of the screen, or you can simply listen to our logic at each step. So the first topic is, I'm currently working as a manager at McDonald's, which is interesting considering how different my upper middle class background is from most of my coworkers. Now we give this topic a 50-50 call. There's one way that this essay is written that would make it a bad topic. It's that it's a snobby essay written about how students sees life on the other side, or simply about working at McDonald's. And they're painting it as this thing that they didn't really want to have to do, or the people they were working with weren't that great. It just comes across as not so much insight, not really a mature, evaluative sense of the world. However, now imagine this essay is written as a portrait of a older mentor that the student met while they were working at McDonald's. And this person has talked them through their own trials and tribulations throughout their life and really became a confidant and a person that this student can look up to in a place where they might not have expected to find that sort of relationship. The next topic is, my brother is autistic, but we have an incredible bond. Inspired by him, I created a program to help other autistic kids. Now, on the surface, this might seem strong, but we actually ranked it as weak. Because on its face, it seems like it could be talking about lessons gathered from their relationship with their brother. But that being said, it focuses on a charity instead of the relationship. They're using their brother, presumably at the beginning of the essay, to start talking about their own accolades in their charity. And it's a tough device to be using as an imbalanced relationship and talking about the charity itself. The next topic is, my dad lost his job recently, and it's been really tough, but having him around the house has taught me so much. So this is a strong essay. There's a lot of potential to go in many directions. You could talk about how a student grew and developed their relationship with their father based on the father's, loss in their stereotypical role as the breadwinner for the family or as a parental figure who's going to work every day. The idea of the parent as this invincible hero is kind of crumbling, and there's definitely a lot of insight and growth and maturity that might come from that. The next topic. My family is dispersed around the globe, yet my relationships with them are defining. I'd like to write a series of vignettes describing experiences with my grandma, my mom, and my dad in 3 different places. Now, think about this. At first, you were probably like, that sounds like a great essay. However, it doesn't pass the infeasibility smell test. You'd have about 200 words for each of your vignettes about your grandma, your mom, and your dad. And in that 200 words, you'd have to develop the character, the relationship with the author, and you'd have to discuss the experience. That's really not possible to do in the confines of the Common App. This could still be a great essay, but maybe you want to shrink it down to 1 or 2 of those relationships and see how it goes. Next topic. I put on 2 different uniforms every day. I wear my work uniform at night and my school uniform during the day, even though I'm on full scholarship. So this essay, we went with 50-50. The key to succeeding here is to not make the students sound like they're complaining about their predicament. Essays that are complaining in nature, while it might be valid, don't come across as mature or as well prepared. It seems a bit like venting. However, this essay could be using the uniform as this mechanic within the essay to communicate insight about this dual life they live. One is the scholarship student who's succeeding, and the other as their work uniform at night to help make ends meet at home. It really is showing that the student can balance their activities and their academics and also to give back for their family. It shows a real sense of morals and values there. And it's likely unique from topics that other students might be coming up with. Next, I had this incredible vocal performance at a national competition, and I'd like to write about it almost like a dramatic play, with characters and asides and lots of imagery. This is weak. It's basically combining a music essay, a competition essay, and it's likely infeasible because you're trying to do so much in 650 words. All right, next one. Working in my parents' bed and breakfast as a kid, I saw so many things that I couldn't believe. How my parents were treated, or how guests made a mess of my house. But it taught me a lot too. So this is a really strong essay. Kind of like the one where the father loses his job. Um, you're describing a really unusual relationship with your parents. Because home is normally a place where the parents are the king of the castle and the owners of the space. But for this student, they're seeing their parents working within their home, and they're also having to meet all of these guests within a place that for most students applying is likely not open to the public. And there's a lot of interesting tidbits to be brought up with here, showing the environment the student grew up in and how it shaped them into the person that they're looking into in the application. All right, we've reached the end of the webinar. We hope you took something away from today's lessons, and if you're looking for further support with your essays, we at Veritas Essays offer one-to-one mentoring with our Harvard essay mentors, or one-stop digital essay reviews for pre-written work if you would prefer a once-over of your work. More information can be found at our website at veritasessays.org, where you're also able to book a free 20-minute consultation to chat about your goals and your candidacy. So thank you so much for watching, and we hope to chat soon.